Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. Given the restiveness in the Niger Delta, a group of young businessmen came together to profess solutions on how to quell the tension. Our guest today will be discussing how his company has helped reduce the level of oil bunkery and pipeline vandalism in the Niger Delta. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned to find out who our guest is. Hello everyone and welcome back to today's episode of the Osasu Show. We are with Captain Osasu. Thank you so much for joining us there.
Thank you. Thank you, Osasu.
You're from the Niger Delta region, so I think I'll be doing our audience a disservice if I don't ask some of the work you've been able to do in terms of development, because we look at corporations such as the Niger Delta Development Commission and other, laudable agencies, but at the same time, it still seems like a lot needs to be done, in the region of the Niger Delta. So, as a successful businessman, a philanthropist from this region, what have you done in terms of infrastructure development and putting certain services and needs in place for those who are lacking?
I personally have contributed something, because it's not only about the armed struggle. You talk about intellectual struggle. I've done a movie, Now, what was my drive, in sponsoring that movie? I believed that I had to give something back, to that region. And I was fighting my cause intellectually. Unfortunately, the president then, Jonathan, was also from our area. And I told him in plain, I said, look, listen, if we have $200 billion today for the development of the Niger Delta, 50 billion will give us 3 major refineries, 3 petrochemical plants, that we employ the youths from amnesty that you're already sending to different countries, and we'll also be able to refine the oil that is coming from our land, which we have borrowed this money against. We'll give value to the oil. And we have $150 billion, to give proper infrastructure, development to our area. Also, I was disappointed. I was completely, deflated when the former president told me. I said, look, Captain, yes, this is a laudable idea, but Niger Delta is not the only region from Nigeria.
Well, were there other means of going ahead with the Niger Delta Oil Company without the help of the federal government?
The world has told us 30 years. We have 30 years for us to drink our oil. 30 years. That's what the world has. Before the world gives you 30 years notice, you actually know that it's now.
But what do you think the solution is? You've agreed that oil will become obsolete in the next 30 years. That's only 3 decades from now.
Yeah,
so
what the solution is, what I believe the solution is for us from that region to stop breaking our pipes. To stop breaking our pipes, to stop polluting the areas. Because it's like you are stabbing yourself. Because in the next 30 years, like they've said, you are going to go back to this land, this same land we are polluting today, thinking that we are doing the federal government, you know, we are doing it to the federal government, that we are hurting the federal government. We're actually hurting ourselves. Because we are going to come back to the land. Because we have no other way out than agriculture for the future. So what are we going to go back to from this region? So we must sit down now, appraise, and now say, okay, what have we done? The leadership and the people that have found themselves in position of authority in the Niger Delta must sit down and say, look, hey, enough. Whatever is given to us, let's use it judiciously for the benefit of our people. And also let the federal government also be sincere in their approach, you know, towards the development of this area. I think that's the only way out.
Sticking with the subject of oil, a subsidiary of yours was previously accused of diverting petroleum products from two of the major refineries. So I know you've talked about this openly before, you responded to those allegations, but I thought to also ask you to clarify that situation.
Yes, you know, that's something, you know, it's quite unfortunate, because when people don't know and they speculate, you know, I'll tell you, sometime in 2009, you know, NNPC on their own were making huge losses from delivery of crude oil. And we're there to provide security for them too. A month or two into this operation, they had stopped. For 1 month, nothing was happening. For the next 2 months, nothing was happening. Crude was now stuck in the VSCC, about 700,000 barrels. And 100,000 barrels was stuck in the vessel, in the jetty, in the refinery. And we inquired from NNPC, what is the problem? Apparently, the guys that had the company on Major Shah and David, we approached them and said, look, why is there no movement? Oh, NNPC has not paid us. And NNPC stood the risk of actually losing that crude to the Israelis. Because in international maritime laws, if you don't pay for cargo or body of vessels, the freight charges, you have a right to take a lien on it and sell it off. Wow. That was the catch. Okay. And I immediately told those men then, I said, look, we have been given a responsibility here by the federal government, by NNPC, to protect these assets. These assets belong to Nigeria. You cannot sell this crude. If you like, you go and bring any lane from anywhere, you know, any order for sale, from London, from The Hague, or wherever you want to bring it. We are not going to let you move with this vessel, with this crude. There's nothing you'll be able to do with it. You can't sell it. I went to the GMD then, you know, Austin Oniwon. I said, Austin, this will be a scandal to this country. And you stand to lose 700,000 barrels of crude in that vessel that is out there, in the VLC. They will sail off with that, your crude. And you also stand to lose 100,000 barrels of crude. So we sat with the owners and told them, look, listen, gentlemen, it's obvious that you can't do this thing anymore. Are you ready to sell your company to us? Let us pay out all these debts that you have accumulated over time. That's how we acquired PPP fluid from the Israelis. To rescue that crude, we spent $19.4 million. I'm talking about verifiable invoices. Invoices, direct transfers to owners, and monies that were also paid the Israelis. Now we come to NNPC. Okay, you rescue the crude. What did NNPC tell us? So, well, yes, money you pay to Israelis is your business. We can only pay verifiable invoices. And the operation was now running very well. And because of what we had done in Warri, they also needed to extend the same service to Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt then, if they introduce crude from Shelburne to Port Harcourt refinery, it just dropped. They probably lose 100% of the crude.
Wow.
So Port Harcourt was shut down. We were the one that opened Port Harcourt. Warri, when we started supplying crude to Warri, from Warri they now started pumping some crude to Kaduna to restart Kaduna. So we did a perfect job in those deliveries. And people didn't understand. And the next thing they were saying was that, oh, being accused of stealing crude. Oh, that crude that they give to us. In fact, that will take half and deliver half to the refinery. How is that possible, sir?
So NNPC at no point in time corroborated these accusations?
Of course they can't. Otherwise, I won't still be there. I'm still working in NNPC. Now, let me tell you what happened. In 2015, we had a 2-year contract, plus one, to move crude for the refinery. And midway in the contract, you notice it was cancelled. It was cancelled in 2015. When the Honourable Minister came in and cancelled the contract, it was well overdue. Because I don't do business, I don't give value. Because I'm a value-oriented person, And so when that was cancelled, and of course, towards the tail end, as Buhari's administration started, they started giving us crude, and we started delivering crude, a lot of crude. And by the time our contract was cancelled, they had crude in the various tanks, for refining. And when the contract was cancelled, NNPC all of a sudden found out that they had no alternative way of delivering crude to the refinery. Pipelines down, moribund. It's not been used for over 80 years. They couldn't go back to the pipelines. And this was the alternative. This was the only way they could get crude to the refinery because the new administration was eager for the refineries to work. And they came back to us and said we should negotiate. And I told them I was not interested in negotiating those numbers because the numbers were hardly negotiated before. They decided to give that crude movement to their shipping arm of NNPC called Niders to now start moving crude to the refinery using marine vessels. Same model. They came for my vessels. Some of my vessels that I had. And I gave them my vessels. I was not a charterer. So I wasn't And for those guys that did that operation, it was not easy for them, But for me and for us, they were now struggling with this. And that was going to affect the refineries. And as a businessman, I believe in continuity in my business. And I went to the GM then, Honorable Minister of Petroleum. I said, sir, these pipelines, I think think we can recover them. These pipelines that have been moribund for close to 8-9 years. I would like to go into the Cape to deliver these pipelines for the refineries. Because that's the only sustainable way, because with this one, Niger is struggling with this crude movement. It's not sustainable anymore. Mm-hmm. But of course, with the drop in oil price as well, that was, the crude movement by vessels had become very uneconomical. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he said, look, Captain, are you sure you can do this? I said, well, let me try. And I reached out to the task force then that was set up by EB, by engineer Rabiu Suleiman, who also is a very committed NNPC guy. I said, Engineer Rabiu, you are in charge of engineering and technical services. Can you please give us a task force, give us some dedicated men, who can work with us, to authenticate what we find on those lines and also sign off when we are doing it. They set up a task force to work with us. And we got that letter of intent and moved to the creeks, both Escravos to Warri and the Bonny to Port Harcourt, pipelines. Mm-hmm. And we moved in there with the task force. Initially, NNPC told us 2 blast points. We got in there, Osasu, in Warri, the Warri Axis. By the time we got to site, we ended up seeing about 7 other blast points. Wow. A total of 9 blast points and several valve insertions. When I mean valve insertions, I'm talking about people actually bringing pipes and attaching to the main pipeline and taking them out to load crude. Tapped on that line. It wasn't an easy job, but I was able to carry the community along. And we were able to achieve the repair of those lines. And Osasu has spent my hard-earned money, what NNPC couldn't do in the past, to fix those pipelines. We introduced water. When we introduce water, anytime we introduce water in those lines, we find out that there are valve insertions that you cannot even locate because you put pressure on the line with the water, put a hydro testing, put water in the line, pressure on the line. In less than 2 hours, the pressure is completely gone because of valve insertion. So you won't even know where it's coming from. So you have to actually engage the different communities. And they'll tell you, oh, yes, so 10 years ago, there was one loading point for Mike. So you trace a pipe 2 kilometers away that has been buried with NNPC pipe. But God using us.
Do you have the sole monopoly of security for these pipelines? Are there other security companies working with you, or is it just?
No, you see, we've engaged the
subsidiaries.
No, not subsidiaries. We've engaged the youths along the line.
Okay.
On both lines, we have close to about 300 youths on each line.
Okay.
And of course we have our assets also deployed, along the waters, and different. I won't give you all the details, but we're doing a good job there, and we're delivering the crude with no loss, minimum loss.
Wow.
Minimum loss, allowable loss in the industry, which is 0.05.
And this is both the Port Harcourt and Warri.
Port Harcourt and Warri.
That's
impressive. The crude is going to the refineries now with no loss, and we've delivered more volumes ever than what we're doing even with the marines, with marine vessels, at a way cheaper price.
I want to talk about the Yola and Ibadan disco. The federal government has said time without number. First of all, I should introduce you as one of the investors in the privatization of this discos. The President Buhari-led administration has stated that the privatization done in the past administration was marred by corruption, nepotism, and incompetence. They claim that the issue is that the federal government can't generate enough power. I believe the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji-Fashola, recently stated that the government is generating 6,800 megawatts of power, but the onus of the issues now is resting on the distribution companies because they lack the competence to actually wheel out this power. So in your capacity as a major investor, do you take blame for the lack of electricity that Nigerians are experiencing?
Well, Osasu, this is a very sore point for me as an investor. Some of us believe in this country, and we love this country. We have also invested our money in this country. Hard-earned money. Some of us are not thieves. We work very hard over time. Today, Osasu, we bought distribution company. We did not buy a generation company. And we signed a performance agreement with the federal government. And in that performance agreement, has the federal government met up with part of the agreement? They refuse to increase tariff. They've not given us the power to sell. And the different flaws that have been in that agreement. Today, Osaru, we as investors borrowed money to pay the federal government, United States dollars. We borrowed dollars from the bank. The discos are not generating dollars. We have been paid in naira. Do you know that the central bank does not recognize that transaction for us to pay back our loan?
The federal government has claimed that the reason they haven't revoked this privatization contract is because they don't want to send a wrong message to the foreign and local investors.
Let me just finish the Yola issue.
Okay.
We are paying the loan in Yola. We are also paying the interest in Yola, and Yola is already handed over to government 2 years ago, and we as investors have not been refunded. Bank is on our net on the debt. Is that how to do business? Is that how to encourage investors to do business in Nigeria? Federal government have not met most of the conditions under which we should operate as a distribution company. And the best thing that can happen today to us or to me is for the government to take back these assets.
So you're willing?
Oh my God! Look, listen. The only way is for them to take back these assets and pay us back our money.
What if they take back the assets and pay you a fraction of what?
No, why? Look, listen, Osasu. I'm not a thief. I've been servicing these debts from my hard-earned money, servicing debts of business that is not working. The business is not working. We're carrying staff that we are constantly paying salaries. Today, we know there are some states that cannot pay salaries for. We have staff that we are paying regularly. We now collect more money than what federal government had ever collected in those distribution companies. We brought business out of those entities. And instead of federal government to encourage us, in fact, those assets will be sold for $1 and let us now invest our money that we pay to the federal government to bring back. But they sold it how can you sell distribution? How can you have sold these assets to Nigerians in dollars? When the assets we are talking about are in naira.
Captain Osakumbo, on that note, let's take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with this. Thank you so much. We'll be right back on the Osasu Show. That's it for today's episode of the Osasu Show. To watch extended clips from this interview, you can visit our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. Follow us on social media at TOSTV Network, at the Osasu Show, at Osasu Igbenajon, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself.